All right, welcome back, everyone. Welcome to another session number two of the Community Couch.
Where real life meets real conversations.
And I am Ray Castillo, a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I'm here with my wonderful co host.
Shacoya Graham, also licensed marriage and family therapist
Yeah.
and community member.
And community member. That is right. So, how are you, Shakoya? How you been since our last episode?
Well, um, happy that we've gotten this started. However, with the recent things that have been going on in our communities, I'll just like to start off this session just letting everybody know this episode will be a heavier one, but a necessary one. We were planning on talking about different things, but I think like this is the most important.
Yeah, totally. And I agree. You know, a little bit of, yeah, a little bit of, we introduced the Community Couch last um our first session together, and you and I had conversation after that first one, knowing coming into this one was going to be pretty heavy. Today's topic about mental health and the community, we knew that was going to be very, very heavy for today.
Mhm. And so before we begin, we want to take a pause and just acknowledge the weight on our communities that we all are carrying. In recent weeks, multiple lives have been lost in ICE custody. They are human beings, they have families, they have histories and communities that love them, and we want to honor them right now.
Absolutely, thank you, and we want to honor these members of the community that have died. Keith Porter, Parity Law, Heber Sanchez Dominguez, Victor Manuel Diaz, Luis Beltrán Llanes Cruz, Luis Gustavo Núñez Cáceres, Geraldo Lunas Campos, of course, Alex Petri, and also Renee Good.
Mhm. These were people, not just headlines. And when systems harm people, the shockwave doesn't stop at the individual, their family. Our communities absorb it, the families absorb it, our nervous systems absorb it. Um, and this is why our conversation today matters and why the community couch matters, because our community matters.
Absolutely. And the reason why we came to the community couch is exactly because we understood how, and we explained it in our last session, how everything, right, impacts, how one lives impacts the other. We talked about it in our last session, right? That, systemically, one, how, in today's topic and what we're going to be discussing, how much of what just recently took place, what just recently happened, um, with our last, our last tragic tragedy, sorry, that happened with Alex, the loss of Alex, right, and all of these other folks that we just mentioned. How much of an impact recently has had in our communities, and what's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yep. And because these communities are stressed, because it wasn't just a loss, it was a murder.
Mhm.
People's lives were taken for no reason. Um, and when our systems feel stressed, we feel it. We feel it inside.
Yeah, right. And when we discuss the systemic therapy view, right, and how individuals actually live inside the system, Maria, you were just touching up on that and talking about it, right? We all feel it in what affects, in this case, right, Minnesota, and the community, right, of Minnesota. It actually impacts all of us here in North Carolina, in Florida, in California, all over the United States. And it doesn't stop there. Shakoya, have you seen recently, and you and I have been sharing videos, how even outside of the United States, how it has actually impacted? What's
What's
happening here today? So we understand that this, community, right? It's not only just you and your siblings or family members or your neighbors. It's the whole globe. It's the whole us, right? Why um we are doing this, why we are doing this community cash to bring it out to the community. So yeah, when we talk about stressors, right? Why community stress becomes personal stress and vice versa, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, yes. So, like, first of all, I'm even feeling it right now, right? Just to be honest, I felt on an edge. I felt like, what is, I feel like just not myself.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, that impacts the people that I see. That it impacts my co-host. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it impacts everybody because I am connected to people who are also connected to people who are also connected to people. And these systems that exist inside the systems, like our family systems, political systems, racial systems, cultural systems, all these systems are feeling stressed. And the people that are carrying it are trying to just move. We're all trying to move together but it doesn't happen like that. Our bodies are affected. Our bodies are feeling it.
Yeah.
Um, and it we're all connected, like you said, around the globe.
Yes. And that stress is being felt. You and I talk a lot about what's going on and how we're, feeling it. I can speak for myself that just the last recent weeks, um, days from these events, right? There has been such an unease feeling, just lack of sleep, and I can feel the weight of the stress on my shoulder, right? Even though that I'm not in Minnesota, even though that wasn't a family member of mine in the past, but it's a human being. All of these folks that we mentioned, all of these people that have been targeted, all of these people that have been taken away, all of these broken families, children, right? When we think of it, right? And I remember that one of the things that really made put not only a tear, put tears in my eyes was when I saw that 5-year-old little boy.
Mm, mhm,
And I couldn't help to think from the perspective of a clinical lens and know the trauma and the traumatic effects that episode to that 5-year-old is going to be in years to come, right?
mhm,
The traumatic effect and the ripple effect on his family, on the community that lives around and that knows this. I'm not sure if you saw the video from the teacher, his teacher, and she was devastated. She was crying, asking, "Please bring Liam back. He needs to be here. His peers are asking for him. What do I tell the kids? How can other 5-year-old kids that are in kindergarten understand that this little boy was just ripped out of his home, right? Taken." So it's difficult. It's tough, right? And I want to just also mention, right, that when we began this, we did say we were going to carry difficult conversations, and this happens to be a difficult conversation, but we need to have it right because it's affecting everybody. We talked about stress, but I want to talk about and bring a little insight and education to our community about the differences between a chronic stress and acute stress or just regular stress, right?
mhm.
And when we talk about stress, we We know and understand that if you live in the US, okay, we live in constant stress, correct? Whether it's the stressors of working, right, career wise, actually going to school, raising a family, right? All of these things that we deal day to day that are really high stressors, right? And when you throw it financial, yeah. I mean, when we think about it, we are accustomed, right? And our bodies are accustomed to this level of stress, right?
Mhm.
Systemic stress, just regular day to day stress, right? And that becomes a natural thing, right? Sometimes for us. However, right, in this normal stress, we still understand that, our body is continuously triggered. It's continuously in this flight or fight response that we talk about in school and so much in psychology, right? Which at times, right, it could be beneficial to some degree, right?
Yes, but not long term. Those feelings are not meant to be.
Yes. Now, that's exactly right, Sequoia. And that's the chronic stress part,
Mm.
right? Because chronic stress then now is where these stressors are persistent over and over and over for an extended period of time, right? Lasting for months, sometimes even years, right? And then that is when it really affects, right? That is really what happens. What happens when a person, and let's step back for a minute from explaining chronic stress, but when we're seeing what has happened within the last year, the last couple of months and weeks up until this thing, right? There, people have felt, and I have felt that chronic stress, right? Which, yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna just say that I don't think we have recovered since COVID. I don't think. I think that our anxiety and depression has doubled. Burnout is in every profession. Teens struggle. Kids struggle. Like when I think about Liam and the attachment, like not only his current family and friends, but the family that's going to come from him is going to be impacted by this.
absolutely.
Our
So,
we're stretched very thin.
yeah. And the problem with chronic stress is that it affects both the mental and physical, right? Studies have shown, I remember we talked about this book and we studied it actually when we were doing our graduate program. The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, right? An amazing book, an amazing research and scientist. Dr. Van der Kolk talks about how chronic stress throughout the years and how much damage, right? Scientifically proven, it actually damages the body, right? Where it has a toll in the physical aspect, creating problems later down the life, right? First of all, cutting on your lifespan, right? I mean, because we know that people that suffer from chronic stress, right, they have a shorter lifespan than
Yeah.
others, right? So it's creating, heart problems and cardiovascular issues, immune system suppression, digestive problems, skeletal problems, sleep disturbances. When you talk about all of these things, right, that it causes in a physical body, right? Dr. Vanderkolk talk about that body keeping the score is what he was meaning, right? Everything that affects that chronic stress affects your body stays there,
Mhm.
right?
It stays there. It's sitting there.
Yeah, it's sitting there, right? And we don't. The issue with that is, and the sad part is that we don't then get to know this until we start aging, right? And all of a sudden we start developing diabetes, heart condition, liver problems. Yeah. So, and this is why now when we talk about mental effects, right? And we deal with this as clinicians and we see it every day, talk about anxiety and depression,
Mhm.
talk about cognitive impairments, emotional instability, right? And this is what we're seeing daily. This is what our clinicians in our practices are seeing daily. This is what we're talking about.
From everyday life. And this is why I think safety and belonging and identity are just a foundation of our mental health. Like, we need that. And when communities lose that stability, that identity, that safety, the people inside them start to break in ways that are mislabeled, right,
Mhm.
as weakness instead of instead of the systemic impact, because it's not just what is happening around us. It's more of what happened in us, like
Yeah.
this pain that we're holding. And the weakness especially, I think is because people are like, "Oh, you can't handle the stress. You can't handle, you just gotta," and I'm like, You're not built, you're not supposed to handle this.
Yeah.
This is
Right?
not
I mean,
not."
there's some regulars we talked about regular stress versus chronic stress, right? Yeah, our bodies, right, with the fight and flight response, right? Where, yes, we have that within us so that we can deal with the regular stressors of life, just day-to-day stuff. For example, where your body, the way that I put it sometimes to my clients is like, just picture like if you're crossing the street and all of a sudden you see a car, that, flight response is gonna activating is going to tell you, "Get out the way, jump out," right? Well, that's protecting you, right?
Mm.
But what we're talking about when we talk about chronic stress, right, is completely different from that. And I wanna also highlight, right, and the importance, right, of the role and recognition of mental health facilities and providers within the community.
As I talk to people and I talk to other community members or like people that own their own private practices and or community services, they are also stretched thin and they're also part of the community. So,
Yeah.
it just it's just a heavy thing that we're supposed to all deal with this and try to I don't even know if I can say like heal it because I think we're just at this point just trying to contain it. Like so it just feels like containing. But yeah, like we need those places.
I think we're fighting to contain it.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten there yet. It's and if you notice, right, and this is just my personal perception, when we contain this little bit here, then there's 5 or 6 other things exploding, and then we're having to go there as a community and try to contain that, and then run to the other one, and run to the other one. And then that constant chronic stress of one thing to the other, right? And I wanted to highlight also, right, when this moment and the impact that it has, right, and the importance of the recognition of us mental health workers and providers in the community, right? Because there was a loss that we recently had,
Yes.
and I want to mention it's a colleague of ours, a clinician, a therapist in Orlando
Mhm.
that just about what 2 weeks ago, I mean, a former client walked in, stabbed her to death, and stabbed another person that was there trying to help. Um, yeah, and this was very an ongoing of heaviness, right, for us in our field, and then systemically what we're feeling across, right?
And like trauma, the problem with trauma, the why it's so big, why it's so widely talked about, and why we really need to pay attention is trauma travels through silence. It travels through our coping strategies. It travels through fear, through tension in our communities, through the stories we tell, including the ones that we don't.
Yeah, go back to that. The body keeps a score. That score, those mental effects and physical effects, and then you touched up on how we haven't even gotten completely um, out of the COVID-19 pandemics, and how its effects are still relevant today, and it's still affecting millions of Americans, right? And it's just been an ongoing thing, right?
Oh yeah,
Um, yeah,
it's still going. Like it's still the things that we're still carrying, things that we just had to keep moving through. Um, and then we wonder why. why more people are irritable, more exhausted, more shut down, more anxious, numb.
Yeah.
Your Our bodies are, reacting to this collective threat that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when we talk about the COVID-19 and the pandemic and the amount of anxiety and depression that elevated it, statistics show like how it doubled after the pandemic. And then, the young adults between the ages of 18 29, especially women, were so affected by this, right? People with prior health conditions, obviously, when we talk about low income and marginalized communities, that's where it was really felt, right? When we talk about the low socioeconomic status communities, that's where the biggest impacts were felt, right? Um, the burnout, the sleep problems. Um, I work with teens and adolescents, during the daytime, and it's um, it's both sad and impressive to see the amount of health crisis, of mental health crisis in our youth and teens and adolescents today, right? And this is coming from then, because these were kids. These were kids in school back then that now are teens and adolescents suffering from depression, anxiety, self harm, suicide ideation, social isolation. These are the effects, from what when we talk about mental health in the community. This is a prolonged effects of these different things that we have been, experiencing. Um, you talk about the healthcare, the essential workers, right? That their trauma, the social disconnect, I mean, the substance use and maladaptive coping skills. And you talk about one of the things that was really interesting to me was the grief and loss, which many people have today unresolved trauma due to that. Over the estimated, what, 1 plus million people that claim deaths during the COVID, right? And, you think about like how these, in our communities, right? Not only the grieving, the families that couldn't say goodbye to these people because they weren't allowed to see them. They weren't allowed to be there. I personally have, family that they had to die alone in the hospital with the nurses, and that's it. Couldn't be there.
And I don't think we're even talking about it that much. Like, we go f things are coming so fast, we just go from one thing to the other. And, when that connection breaks down and we stop talking, we stop checking in, we stop asking about that, we stop processing together, that in itself becomes its own mental health crisis. And that's where this conversation matters, because I know so many people are walking around with these heavy feelings, and sometimes I like to say, we don't even, like you said earlier, we don't even know we're carrying them because we have been carrying them so long. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost as if we get so accustomed, right, and used to feeling that way, and it isn't until you are at a point of a breakdown, which it's when most people seek help and they come in to see a therapist. And it's because at that point they have had they've experienced an anxiety attack, a panic attack. Some of them have maybe had already some medical conditions because of that, and their doctors have said, "You need to go. This is stress related. You need to go see a therapist." So, yeah, a lot to be said about that. A lot to be talked about that, and I want us to, if it's okay, to this is the part where we're really going to talk about this. And I remember on our first episode, you said, we are going to talk politics. I'm like, yes, we're going to talk politics. Definitely. But, and it's, and it's important to the community. The community us in the community and our community needs to hear, and we need to talk about this. We can't just not talk about it. We can't avoid it. We can't ignore it. We gotta talk about this, right? So I want us to dive in into the current political climate and how this is affecting us, how this is affecting the community.
Yeah, people are like I said, people are emotionally reactive, anxious, overwhelmed. Families are broken up, right? Because of politics. Um, People are feeling it's just so much uncertainty and fear,
Mm.
in our families, relationships, and communities, like husband and wives can't even have regular conversation because politics.
Yeah, yeah. There's such a division, right? Like you said, there's a lot of anxiety when we talk about right uncertainty. I've this is the word that I have heard and I have felt myself. I don't know if you should go. You have felt that this, but I have heard this word hopelessness or hopeless,
Mhm. 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 Yep.
and I have felt hopeless.
Mhm. Mhm. Political fear, it doesn't just stay, like, in our heads, it doesn't just stay in when we vote, right? It also goes into our body. Our communities feel that fear. I don't care what race you are, I don't care what culture you're from, you are impacted, especially today. We are all impacted
Yep.
by our political climate, what's going on, how people chose to vote.
Yeah, and I really want us to talk about the reality because yes, it absolutely impacts all of us, right? Because as we're talking, when we're talking systemically, right? What affects Shakoya impacts Ray, what impacts Ray impacts someone else, and so forth and so on. And I also want to mention, right, how this really highly impacts in larger amounts and numbers these marginalized identities or communities that we often sometimes talk about and sometimes maybe not.
Yes. Yes. Because
Because this is really truly affecting.
mhm. And I like to say that, yes, it is affecting marginalized communities, but I also because I think sometimes that's where we kinda even separate. And our white counterparts are left out and not brought into the conversation, and I'm a firm believer. Like, if you know me, I'm gonna say, "No, my white folks, my white people, come to the conversation. Just because you hear marginalized does not mean back away. You are also a
Yeah.
part of this conversation. You also are impacted by what's going on in this community, no matter what."
Well, and
Because
interestingly enough, and this is where it gets really, really interesting, right? And it gets really, um, yeah. There's a lot to say about this, right? And I'm glad that you're inviting this conversation, right? Because you and I both have, I'm married to a white man. We have a lot of white friends in the community, professional and other friends, and we invite into this when we because it's sometimes this is a very hard and difficult conversation to have when we start the conversation about marginalized individuals or marginalized communities. And oftentimes is I think and I feel that it comes from the perception of guilt or shame
yeah.
or I don't want to say what I want to say because I may offend someone else. Um and that's what keeps us divided.
Yes, it does. It keeps us so divided, and we're not separate.
Talk about it.
We are literally so connected in so many
Yeah.
ways.
Yes. We need each other. We seriously could do so much better if we all come together and talk about these things, because when we don't, right? When we don't acknowledge it and when we don't talk about it, then that's what's remembered.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's what that's what hurts. That is what, you know, um I go to bed with,
Yeah.
right? At the end of the night when I'm processing, because one thing about Ray's brain takes a while to shut down at night, and then wakes up right at 4:15 in the morning, and he activates and there's no going back to sleep. But when Ray goes to sleep at night and Ray starts to go through all of these things, I can't help, Shakoya, to think about the silence in many people.
Mhm. And it builds more fear.
Mm.
And even, like, that fear just grows because silence, you don't know. So you're just holding it by yourself, you
Yeah,
think. And then so everyone is just living in this emotional pressure cooker, just waiting to pop.
and it could be mistaken.
Mhm.
It could be completely taken the wrong way by simply a person not, opening up and stating their feeling and how they're, you know, seeing things, right?
Or feeling safe enough to open up.
Safe enough.
Yeah.
And this is the part where, we need to come together. We need to talk about these things. We all see it from different lenses, right? When we talk about, we talked first session, we talked about, I shared a little bit of my story, and I have different things, right? I mean, I see it from the lens of my culture, my language, my learning, my belief system. I mean, all of those things, right, are lenses inside of my brain that I see things and I judge things. Whether I'm wrong or right, or whether I think of certain or differently or indifferent, does not mean that I cannot have a conversation with Shakoya, that sees it from a different lens and a different point of view. We can have that conversation. We can talk about it. And then I can understand how you see it and you can understand how I see it.
Yeah, from our different points of views, which don't mean wrong. Don't mean my point of view doesn't mean that yours is wrong.
Yeah.
They both live in tangent with each other.
Yeah. I see the fear like you were talking about just a moment ago, not only, close friends or in friends in friend groups. I see it in my family, right? When we talk about, this division of not only politics but also religion, right? And all of those components that, just sort of that fear of I can't say this freely. I cannot, it's just and people stick forward. And it's, that silence that it's sometimes not good, and Martin Luther King Jr. said, this, and it resonated and it was so impacted me. He said, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends.
Mm.
And I will say, I think that's a mic drop, and I think we can end the chat here, but we're not going to do that. But it just impacted me because it's reality.
Yeah, and the division, like we said before, but a lot of it is I think sometimes we think we're doing it because we don't wanna lose the relationship. We become silent because, uh, we don't wanna hurt someone's feelings, right?
Mhm.
We choose not to say the things, but that silence itself is kind of a loss, and it
Yeah.
continues,
Yeah.
and it continues.
We often, in couples therapy, sometimes, we teach couples, right, that not doing anything or something is also a decision.
Oh, it is very much a decision. It is choice.
Yes. Thoughts. Not speaking about something or acknowledging or entering into conversation, it's also making a choice, right? Um, you were talking about that safety and feeling unsafe. Um, and then there's a difference between feeling unsafe and feeling informed, right?
Say more, I'm ready to
Yeah.
hear.
So, like there I want to say that in today's climate, right, and what we're living today, right, there are pros and cons in this is Ray's opinion, right? Of staying informed, right? And I often exercise because I like to stay up to date and I do like to read and I do like to hear what's happening across the different news sources, the internet and stuff like that. I don't only see one news source. I actually look at multiple. I even started to see things from like Europe and outside of here just to hear perspective from people that are seeing us from outside.
Mm,
Um, and there's pros and cons to staying informed, right? Because when pros is you stay informed and you understand what is happening. You can protect yourself. You can protect those who you love. Um, you can get ready for different things, right? And then the con to not staying informed, right, is exactly the opposite, right? Where you don't know, and because you don't know, then again, right, you rather sometimes stay silent because you don't know what's going on.
mhm. Or we wanna stay in, I'm gonna say it. We're gonna stay in denial because we don't wanna feel what's going on, and we think
Yeah.
that is also keeping us safe. So we ignore it. We say, "This isn't happening to me. This doesn't have anything to do with me." But it does, right? You're still sitting with it, and that, and and so for the people that are more, I always have this phrase, like, the trauma of being woke,
Yeah.
of seeing and knowing. It is traumatic, and I think that's what we're talking about today, is how that trauma of knowing and seeing what's happening in our communities, how it throws us into survival mode, you know?
Yeah.
How we even thinking about, like, the cost of living going up, financial stress, people being just ashamed of struggling, right?
Well, it's already expensive. It's already too expensive.
I'm like, "You need 3 jobs to live here."
Yeah. It's in how much pressure and how much when we talk about that chronic stress, right? How many uh, you know, single family homes, right? Like mothers or fathers raising kids and going through that constant stressor of how am I going to make meets and like this ends meet, sorry, like this month,
Mhm.
even selecting what they're gonna pay or can't pay.
Choosing.
Yeah.
And and again, that survival mode that we have to go into. Can't think long term. We're not
Mm.
we're not just, the imp is talking about the impact that it has on our communities and our mental health, right? Is that people are more irritated,
Yep.
they're feeling more anxious,
Yep.
and, again, they can't think, long term, they're just in survival mode,
Yeah.
protection mode. And sometimes we think it's like our personality flaws, like, oh, you can't handle it, right? Not doing well. But that's not what it is. It's just, again, our nervous system's trying to survive. And one thing I know for a fact is that connection is one of the strongest things that can help settle that. Like, just knowing that you have someone.
Yeah. Who to turn to, who to go to, which is community, right?
So many
It's
people don't have someone, especially with this division in families.
not when we talk about those marginalized communities. Now that you say that, right? I mean, we talk about our trans community, and oftentimes our trans community is well known
Mm,
for being completely socially isolated,
mhm.
right? Don't have a family to turn to. Oftentimes, right? And I'll say this and I'll speak to this because I can, because I'm part of the community. How often the trans community is discriminated within the context of the gay, lesbian, LGBT community, right? The LGBT community is how how this all affects them, and where do they go? Who do they turn to in times of need? Other communities, like our Asian community, that's our um Indian community. Yeah. Mm.
It's some things just in this conversation just I feel like have no words. Like I just feel like there's yeah, something that we have to sit with and recognize.
Yeah. I think
Because I don't think we sit with it, and then here's the desensitization, sorry, and the numbing that we start to get into, or the avoiding, whatever you wanna call it. We're doom scrolling,
yeah.
we're burned out, we're overstimulated, we're numb, we're trying to find a way to just we're seeing things happen and just like, "Oh, yep, someone else has died. What?"
Yeah. And I think that's, one of the messages that we need the community to keep in their mind, right? Is that this isn't normal.
Mm-mm. And
This is not normal. And the more we can tell each other that, and the more we can talk about this and why is this not normal, the better that we can stay together, the better that we can come together as one community to help and protect one another and to stand there for one another, because it truly isn't
mm-mm.
normal.
No. And I think we think that the numbness, like, is apathy, like, we're just not feeling, but it's not. It's us being overwhelmed. It's our body tapping out and saying, "I don't have any more. I have nothing left to give. I can't absorb any more of this." And then so our communities are becoming desensitized because they're all emotionally exhausted. We
Yeah.
need rest,
Yes.
and it's hard to know when we can get rest.
Hmm.
Someone told me a story one time, and she's said it was a therapist earlier on in my career, and she was like, "When we're all doing it, think about it. It's like if we have to set a fire, if we're all cold and we're doing a fire, you got one person to go get the wood. You got one person to start building the fire. You got one person to like people coming together. So not one person is doing everything.
Hmm.
And in my opinion, this is the only way we can actually have rest, right? If we know, okay, someone else has me while I rest, and then I'll be on watch next time, you know?
Mhm.
But I don't think we have that. We are emotionally exhausted, but we can coming together, even if our backs are together. That is the way that we can still continue to stand up if we're leaning against each other.
Well, I think it's important to also for us to normalize if any members of our communities, right, have been feeling numb,
Mhm.
have been feeling fatigued and tired and desensitized from what's happening. I wanna tell you that that is a consequence of everything that is happening and that you're not alone.
Mhm. Anxiety is rising, depression is rising, financial stress is at an all-time high. People are overwhelmed, and this is not a personal failure. It's a systemic response to systemic failure.
Yeah. I think it's a one thing you and I agreed is that this topic was going to be a very heavy topic. And, as we were talking, I know it feels heavy on both of our sides. Um, and we'll continue talking more about community and mental health on our next session. But I wanted to close, this one session with, providing hope,
Mm.
providing support, um, reminding our community couch followers and people that are looking at us that we are here for all of us
Mhm.
to talk about it, to bring it up. And there is support, whether it's here in the community couch, whether it's at a mental health facility, right? Or uh, a practice, um, whether it's at your doctor's office, whether it's at your church, whether it's at, in the community somewhere, there is support.
Mhm.
And I want us to really remind that to the community that you are not alone. You're not alone. You're part of this system, and we want to include you. And if you don't have us, you don't have that, then I want you to use the community couch somewhere when you can feel part of a group and a community.
Yeah, so also in that same, like, this is when you should go to therapy. Sometimes that is that person that you're holding that holds you up that can do that for you is your therapist. Like,
Hmm.
this is why therapy is so important, and I say it, I think people should go to therapy all the time
Hmm.
because we just need connection. And sometimes we can say those things that we need to say. We can name those emotions that we need to name. We can not feel isolated. We can feel like, we can choose connection and talking about it instead of silence
Hmm.
with our therapists, because 'cause they're not there to judge, they're not there to fix, they're not there to, um, you know, they're not your family. And also we are trained on how to deal with and hold this for people. We're trained on this.
Yeah.
I hear people say all the time, "If I talk about it, it's not gonna fix anything." No, but you can drop off some things. You can drop off some of that load that we keep holding, and we've been holding and holding and holding, and lighten your load at least.
Yeah. Hear a different perspective. And sometimes that is where change begins to happen. And just being able to listen to to your therapist's perspective on what's going on and them helping you to get through those processes, through that life, through that circumstance. So I think that you and I agree that, we want to invite the community to seek help,
Mm.
seek a therapist. If you don't have a therapist and you're looking for one, please write us. We would be happy to help you plug into a therapist or in the community wherever you're at. Shakoya and I are very plugged in the community. We know a lot of different practices and colleagues that we have in the Charlotte or even outside of Charlotte area, and we'd be happy to connect you with someone to help you, your family, and whatever the circumstance may be.
Yes, because you're not alone in it. We're not meant to carry this in isolation. Community is our way through. So take a breath, take what you need from today, and come back next time. We're just getting started.
Yes, we are. But thank you for being here tonight with us. We look forward to seeing you in our continuation of community mental health. And we'll see you guys and other things that we got coming up.
Thank you for joining us.